In the prospect, the panorama, and their prominent successor, the postcard, the city rises before us as a picture, and indeed as an organized structure that has its own order and, like a human being, its own unique character. Taking this view of the city, we are not part of it. We are outside the city. Our perspective is that of the new arrival. You are probably all familiar with the phenomenon. You're approaching a city, and depending on the route you take, its silhouette comes into view with its characteristic features, usually prominent buildings. In the past, these would have been church spires. Now they are distinctive high-rises or structures of the industrial era, like the Eiffel Tower. Vermeer's painting gives you an excellent illustration of how the city becomes a counterpart of the beholder, how it seems to be imbued with its own personality and history. One of the churches the little figures in this picture are looking at contains the grave of William of Orange, who led the struggle of the northern Netherlands to shake off the Spanish occupation. Silhouettes have a recognition value, and so lend themselves as symbols of identification. The silhouette, people believe, expresses the character of a city. In the 18th century, the term came to be used to designate the outline of a human face seen in profile. In this sense, too, it was associated with the idea that the physiognomy, and more particularly the outline, of the human face attests to an underlying character. And we also speak of the face, the physiognomy of a city. The destruction of the Twin Towers demonstrated what it means when the silhouette is altered, and of course, that is what this act of terror was meant to accomplish: a massive alteration of the self-image of the city of New York. The prospect not only reveals the city's physiognomy, it also displays the faces of its buildings. It emphasizes the facades, not the structural volumes. It brings out the rise and fall of the roof lines, the prominent points. The affinity between the prospect and the developer's prospectus is more than a matter of words. As early as 1960, Kevin Lynch, in his famous book The Image of the City, bemoaned the disappearance of these prominent and characteristic features of cities, due to their rapid growth, which mostly defied attempts at regulation. The absence of such elevated standpoints and markers, Lynch argued, led to alienation, or the lack of identification with cities on the part of their residents. In this perspective, New York appears as an old-fashioned city in the positive sense of the word. Its antithesis would be Jersey City, a faceless new city. That was the early era of rapid urban growth. Today, it is primarily in Asia and Latin America that cities spring up in what seems like no time at all. These cities confront us as unstructured tangles of hastily raised buildings whose organization is different from what we know. Looking through the lens of the European idea of the city, and that idea still applies to New York, we cannot read them. What lends such agglomerations their face? Do today's cities even need a face? Do not expect me to answer that question. It's a question you will have to address.